educators, everyone. Um, Great to have you here. Um, Today's Baret session is about Jason, our dean, and we're really honored to have him here to talk to us about not just his career, but why he's doing what he's doing right now and the value he sees in leading a journey around the world with Baret scholars. Um, Jason is uh, Jason is a man of long distances, of ultra distances. um, I only learned about ultra marathons once I met Jason. An ultra marathon is a race of could be a race of 100 miles. Is that right, Jason?
I mean, there are people who actually run further than that.
Further than that. Okay, yeah.
But not I've never done anything longer than that.
Okay. And in the spirit of long runs and plenty of stamina, Jason has had a long and strong career in academia and now with us at Baret. So Jason studied at Harvard, Stanford, and then earned a PhD in linguistics from UC Berkeley. He was the inaugural director of the Beijing Center of Stanford's Bing Overseas Studies program and served as the American co-director of the Hopkins Nanjing Center for Chinese and American Studies. Jason has kind of a long history with China, which he might talk to us a little bit about as well, bringing his international experience to this. Um, and he's he's led similar journeys around in with students before as well, and we are very excited to hear what he thinks about the educational underpinnings of a program like Baret Scholars and why something like this is necessary or valuable at the moment for students who are on their way to university. So that's the frame of today's discussion. It's My name's Farhad. I've met some of you already, not all of you. I'm not an ultra marathoner like Jason. I sometimes jog about 2 or 3 kilometers, and I'm very happy with myself. I'm the co-head of global student recruitment at Baret Scholars, and I'm joined by the very talented Naijing Guo, the director of student engagement at Baret. Um, and we've got a quiet Chris Whittle down here as well. So that's us from Baret. Over to you, Naijing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining here today. We have a really great crowd. I always love to start these sessions up with some sort of a icebreaker to get to know people that are joining us in the room today. Because today's topic is about leading a journey around the world, traveling around the world.
Mm.
One of the things that our teaching fellows, which are the fellows or faculty that is joining our students around the world, some of them asked the people or the students in their house, in their little house units, one thing before the trip, which was to bring one non-essential thing that reminds you of home. So it can be your favorite mug, or it can be that keychain that you keep around. Veronica, who's another fellow of ours, she said she would wanted to bring her mocha cup. If you were to travel around the world and you could to accompany you, you could bring one item or you can bring one person.
Mm.
Um, our dean is already taken, so you can't say Jason for now. Who would that be and what item would that be for you? Jason, would you like to start?
Well, because you gave me the choice between an item and a person, I have to take the person. And that person for me would be my beloved spouse and life partner, Colette. She's my best friend. Uh, being away from her is the most difficult part of being on the road. I'm really lucky that she's going to be making appearances at various points along the journey. But she's my role model, my inspiration, and also an international educator and fellow ultramarathoner. So I'm incredibly
Oh,
fortunate to be on literal and metaphorical journeys with her all the time. So that's who I would bring, and actually get to bring a little bit throughout the year.
That's so wonderful to hear. It's really warm and sweet as well.
mhm.
Fahad, what about yourself?
Yeah, I might bring a person as well. For me, it would be uh, security officer Tom Matthews. Okay. Yeah. Uh, Tom Matthews is he's not just a strong guy. He's a really I find him an incredibly curious and intelligent person, and I know I'd be safe everywhere around the world with him, and I'd like to feel that way.
Yes, I heard that you got very safely escorted somehow to
Exactly
the
right.
airport
Exactly
before
right.
leaving.
Once you experience having that kind of security, there's no going back. Nanjing?
Um, Since the two of you have said people, I'm gonna go off the grid and say an item. I would bring a traveling guitar, and this is inspired by our fellow scholars, actually. If you've followed our YouTube, there's this one
Hmm.
video of our students at orientation around the campfire playing songs and singing along. I think that is the most beautiful, heartwarming thing. I have to send it to you guys in a bit in the chat. And I'd love to have a little jam session with the fellow scholars and teaching fellows as well. Anyone else? Would anyone want to jump in and share? Go ahead,
Rami.
me.
Hi guys, thank you so much for giving me the chance. I'm enjoying it. One thing that I would definitely bring with me to any travel that I go to is my cat because my cat is called Cookie. She doesn't complain about going out. She's very outgoing. I mean, she's the perfect fit for me to take wherever I want to go, you know?
That's
Love
really
that.
cute.
Thank you.
Love
Of
it,
course, I
love
would.
it.
Of course.
And second person on my screen is Sanjita.
You're on mute.
Oops.
Oh.
I know that you're on a
Uh,
campus tour, so maybe that was a.
Oh,
Oh, there you go.
sorry, can you hear me? Can
Yes,
you
I
hear
can.
me? So sorry. So currently I am at Gen Tech. We're having like a company office tour, and I'm with like a bunch of CS scholars from Berkeley, and we're all like traveling for this office trip. But I really
okay.
wanted to like hop into the meeting to like actually get to see all of your faces. So thank you so much for having me here. But I might drop out like after a certain time. So for me, I think Baret Scholars like gives you the wonderful exposure to like go to so many different parts of the world. If I could bring, to be honest, I think I want to bring multiple people. I don't want to bring one person. I want to take like
That's not
every
allowed. You have
country,
to
like
bring one.
well, my sister is currently attending, so not fair to take her again. I'd probably take my mom. Yeah, for the first
Right.
half, and then my dad for the last half. Yeah, she's really amazing, and then she's my role model, and she is really this person like who is able to manage every difficult situation with like such boldness, and that really inspires me to be like her. And yeah, so she
Thank
would be the
you.
one. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's very sweet. And I like how you added your dad for the second leg of the tour.
Yeah.
It's not an afterthought at all. I'm gonna
Yeah.
take
Let's get two more.
two more that's on the screen in sequence. Uh, Tasnia, is that how you say your name? Am I
Yep.
butchering
Hi,
it?
Tasni.
Oh, I think you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Oh, sorry for that inconvenience. I didn't notice that I'm muted.
Mm.
No
Um,
worries.
yeah, first of all, hello everyone. This is Tasnia Kabir Tushti. I'm a first year student from Bangladesh, studying in a university here currently. I'm an architecture student, and if I would like to bring something with me, that would be my headphones because
Mm.
I love listening to music every day, every moment of the day. Whenever I do maths, I like to hear music with it because it just gives me energy. And when you hear music on headphones and just on phone devices, it's very different because when you listen to music on headphones, the bass, the beats just amplifies a lot, and I
Yeah,
love that about that. Yeah, so this is it. Thank you.
awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Tasnia. The last one that I'm gonna see in sequence on my screen, it's Yazan.
Oh, yeah. Hi, everybody.
Hi,
Hi,
So,
Yazan.
Azam.
Hi, Elsa.
so for me, unlike Jason and Farhad, I would definitely bring an item. And why would I pick an item is because I feel like going to a program such as Baret, I feel like I'm gonna be exposed to several new cultures, and I also feel it's important for me to remember my own culture. So for
Mm.
myself, I'm gonna bring this item that I've kept with me forever, and this item would be my grandma's old cassette tape of the
Hmm.
famed diva. I don't know if you guys heard her name, Kulthum. She has the best songs. You guys should check that out. And I'll always remember my culture and at the same time meet and see and face new cultures. So yeah, thank you.
That's
Thanks, Yazam.
very cool. You'll have to
Mm.
type that name in the chat. We'll have to check it out. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing. Now, I'd love to jump into the session to hear a little bit about Jason's background. Fahad covered it a little bit in terms of his background in higher education at Stanford, at
Mm.
Harvard. I'd love to hear what your journey was like through that process and what was your impression of the most important things that you got out of your experience in these higher education institutions, and what were the things that you felt like you needed um, afterwards and that you wanted to find this in global travel.
Mm.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, before I get into that, just a couple of quick notes. First is I want to thank you both, Farhad and Najing, for your extremely kind and generous introduction. It is truly my great and good fortune and my honor to have the chance to lead this incredible group of human beings around the world. Um, you're getting a sense already just from listening to the Baret folks speak that this really is a group of extraordinary human beings. Um, the chance to be with these 120 people every single day. I mean, every single student is absolutely extraordinary. Every single staff member is absolutely extraordinary. And I don't just mean that. I mean, we've all got great resumes, and that's important. Uh, but more important than that is, I think we're a collection of amazing human beings, and that's first and foremost what you'll be joining if you sign on with Baret Scholars. I also just want to let you know there's a chance because of so I'm currently the only staff member in Sao Paulo, and I'm holding I'm currently holding our duty phone. It could ring at any time if something is happening. We hope it doesn't, but that could happen. Um, and with all of that, I do want to then get into some of the substance and address Nijing's question, plus a couple of items in addition to that. So, yeah, Farhad touched on my career. It's been really focused on higher education. And I've had part of my good fortune has been to spend a lot of time at universities. And universities are experts at producing and conveying knowledge. And I love knowledge. I could talk for a really long time that we can, I'm sure all of us could have different kinds of really interesting knowledge-based conversations if we had all the time in the world to do that. And one of the recurring themes in my life and in my career is that knowledge, while wonderful, is just one aspect of what makes us happy and successful human beings. And I'm kind of a case study in this myself. As an undergrad at Harvard, I majored in East Asian studies. I began studying the Mandarin language and studied a lot of Chinese history And I graduated from college and I took a year to decompress. And then 1 year later, I joined a program called Princeton in Asia that sent me to a remote city in Northeast China. And the name of the city is Qiqihar. And I had a lot of knowledge, but I had zero skills when it came to effectively crossing borders. I just was overwhelmed by the difference that was around me everywhere. My brain went into fight, flight, or freeze mode, and it was extremely difficult for me. And nobody had really prepared me for this. There was something missing, and I wanted to find out what it was. And I didn't really know where to look. So I went back to school to get more knowledge. And this is where I ended up meeting my life partner in a master's program in East Asian Studies at Stanford, and then went on to my PhD program. But the thing is, that PhD program in linguistics at UC Berkeley, it took me 9 years to finish that program. And the reason that it took me so long to finish that program was when summer came around, I didn't want to stick around and do research. I wanted to be out there in the world with young people. And, for 3 straight summers, I co-led programs with a company some of you may have heard of called Where There Be Dragons, taking high school students from the US through remote adventures all over China. And so this has always been a passion of mine. How can we create really impactful learning beyond the knowledge of the classroom, beyond the walls of the classroom? These days, there's lots of studies that are out there that show that employers around the world are looking for people with a special set of skills. And these go by different names. Sometimes they're called border crossing skills. Sometimes they're called soft skills. I prefer the term power skills. I didn't invent the term power skills, but I like the term because having these skills is kind of like having a superpower. And what are these skills? Well, there's lots and lots and lots of them, but mostly these are not skills that are connected to our technical skills. Chances are that we have been, when we enter the workforce, that we get hired for some of our technical skills, but power skills are different. These are skills that enable us to be effective colleagues and bosses because they involve our abilities to relate well with other human beings, especially where there is significant differences, whether those are interpersonal differences or intercultural differences, and skills for managing the brain's reaction to difference. So the brain, the way that humans are wired, when there's difference all around us, our brain is programmed to see that as threatening. And that sets off the fight, flight, or freeze mechanisms of the brain. And power skills, one of the things that they enable us to do is to turn that threat, the sense of difference as a threat, into difference as an asset or an opportunity or a strength, which is so necessary in our increasingly diverse world and also sorely missing because, again, there aren't many places where we can get these skills. And then finally, these are skills that enable us to collaborate effectively. The brain will generate so much background noise. It can be very hard for us to even understand what we're disagreeing about. And power skills enable us to kind of turn down the volume of that noise in the background so that we can get on with our work together. So again, universities are wonderful, but they don't equip us with these power skills. So there's this big question, where can I get these power skills? And this is where Baret Scholars comes in. And it's what drew me to Baret Scholars because it offers a chance for young people to develop these power skills even before you join the workforce, and in many cases, even before you attend university. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we've learned about power skills over the years is they don't just come. You can't just, if you throw a bunch of people together and take them around the world, you're not guaranteed to get meaningful learning out of that. In fact, there was a big study came out in 2009 that showed that unless you're very intentional about how you do this learning, you could actually end up with less intercultural competence. That's a kind of a technical term in the field, but you could actually end up decreasing your intercultural competence after a study abroad program if the learning isn't structured in a particular kind of very, very intentional way. And so there's 3 main ways in which we create an environment where this kind of learning can happen with Baret. First is exposing students to differences. And that's woven into the fabric of the program through the diversity of the cohort of students and also through the diversity of the places that we visit. But again, by itself, so that's like a really helpful precondition, but it's not enough by itself. So we also give the students opportunities to reflect, a lot of opportunities to reflect through their small group meetings in their houses, in their one-on-one meetings with fellows and the relationships that students develop with fellows throughout the year. And then also through skill building sessions that we do as a cohort together. And we began these sessions during our orientation before our first stop in New York City, and we are continuing them throughout the year. And then finally, we provide a living laboratory for students to experiment with doing new things in new ways. I think you'll find that Baret's approach to learning is deeply grounded in principles of design thinking, which is a helpful way to think about innovation. Try something new. Get feedback. Try it again differently. Get more feedback. Prototype and iterate is often the terminology that's used. And this approach is most effectively used in combination with the reflective practices that I was just discussing a moment ago. Okay, so finally, what does this all mean for our students? And then I'll stop talking. We can move into more of a conversation. So first of all, more attractive university applicants. Universities are looking for students with fascinating stories where you can explain not just, hey, I went to all these interesting places, but hey, I learned X, Y, and Z. I went through this challenging experience and I learned X, Y, and Z. And you'll emerge from your Baret year with countless stories like this. Broader perspectives. You'll have a chance to develop perspectives that are much broader than other university applicants. The skills that you will build, these power skills, these are in-demand career skills that you'll be developing as well. And then really the last one, this is why I do this work. You will become difference makers in a world that desperately needs difference makers. We need boundary crossers, we need bridge builders, and we need people who can lead with compassion and understanding. Sorry, that is not the duty phone. It was my other phone. We desperately need to equip young folks like you with these power skills so that you can go on and become leaders in a world that desperately needs leaders with these skills. I think if you're looking at Baret from the standpoint of value and what value it offers, if you just go to university and follow the traditional path, it's kind of predictable what's going to happen. I mean, you'll learn a lot of great stuff and you'll go on to do great things. And you can think of it as a low risk, kind of low to medium reward approach. It'll be left to chance whether you're able to develop these power skills and really make the most of university and of your careers. If you do the Baret year, you will emerge with a deeper set of skills and experiences that will benefit you in countless ways for the rest of your lives. Now, there is a slightly higher risk because there is an investment involved, but the reward predictably will be much, much, much higher than that traditional path. Now, of course, I'm a little bit biased because I'm with the organization, but what brought me to the organization was, in my professional assessment after many decades of international education, that the value is there. So I'll stop talking and turn it back over to you, Naijing, maybe to facilitate more of a conversation.
100%. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's such an interesting combination of the research side and also the experiential side as well. I've never heard the research about people decreasing their cultural competencies after a study abroad program. I'm curious to hear, what was it about these study programs that were missing? And you also mentioned how in Baret you make an intentional effort to have Baret be a living lab. And can you give me an example of what that looks like at Baret, and opposed to kind of the study abroad program?
So the study, without sort of getting too technical about it, it's and if we want to follow up, I can send the reference. It came out in 2009 in the a journal called Frontiers, which is the produced by the Forum on Education Abroad. And what it essentially showed was that they used an instrument called the Intercultural Development Inventory, which is one well-respected measure of this phenomenon called intercultural competence. And they compared study abroad programs that sent the students abroad and then they came back without any of these targeted interventions that I'm talking about, which you can do in a bunch of different ways, versus programs that provided targeted interventions to develop intercultural competence. And what they found was only in that second group were there statistically significant gains in intercultural competence. In the other group, there were some people who gained a little bit, and there were some people who lost a little bit. And it's essentially the logic is fairly straightforward, which is if it's like me going to China for the first time. I was thrown into this environment with differences all around me without any tools for understanding what was going on.
Yeah.
Right. I had a lot of knowledge. I had a whole undergraduate degree's worth of knowledge, which was helpful, right? So I had 2 years of Mandarin under my belt, and that came in handy, and my Mandarin did get a lot better over the course of that year. But knowledge was ultimately kind of helpless against my brain's instinctual wiring that I was somehow in danger.
Yeah.
And there was no real context provided for that. So that's that piece. And then when we get in terms of the living laboratory, this is it's kind of baked into the DNA of Baret. So any conversation that well, I don't want to say any conversation. I'll just say that there are so many conversations happening every day, whether it's in the one-on-one advising sessions with the fellows, whether it's in the house meetings with the fellows, whether it's in some of these all cohort sessions. If I have a chance to have a conversation with a student, we're just always encouraging students to try things. It's really just like baked into our DNA. Go try this. See how it works. I'm trying to think of if I can come up with a specific example. Yeah, I'll give you an example. A student came up to me when we were in New York City, and she's kind of out of the blue. She said, "Jason, what makes for a good question?"
And that's a great question about a question.
That's a great question, right? Why is that such? We actually took her question as an example of a great question, and then I started to just free associate about some aspects of what I thought were good questions. And then I said, and here, I've got a challenge for you. At the next morning program, make yourself visible enough. I asked her, I said, so have you been wanting to ask questions at morning program? And she said, well, yeah, but I don't really know. And I said, well, I'd like to challenge you to see if you can find a way to get yourself recognized and ask a good question. And then the very next day at morning program, I think it was our second speaker, her hand goes up, she gets called on. I think she sat in the front row. I think I advised her to try that. Sit in the front row, make yourself more visible. And she asked a question. And the speaker said, oh, that is such a great question. And there was this, and then afterwards we circled back. I said, way to go, that was amazing. She was like, yes. She was completely lit up about it. So one real life example from this initial Baret year.
That's so fascinating. And just for context, for some people that are joining in at morning programs at Baret, we basically invite incredible speakers to talk to our students. And after they give a presentation or some sort of interactive session or workshop, people can raise their hand and ask questions to the speakers. So that's really cool. A great example of that. I'm really interested about the point that you were asking, that you were mentioning about how universities might see students as more viable or capable candidates as they're applying for university. You've been at many higher ed institutions as faculty as well. You see the types or profiles of students that these higher education institutions and universities would want to see. Do any stories come to mind, or any examples come to mind in the current program where you feel like this is really something that would really be drawing to a college admissions, I guess, panel. I know that for Baret, just for context as well, we a lot of our students are actually applying for university during Baret. Maybe would you say half of the students, they might have gotten their offer and they thought about it and they wanted to reapply to university? Is that uh, a
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the actual numbers. I believe that a majority of our students have been admitted to at least one university and have deferred.
yes,
But I
yeah.
don't actually know the exact numbers on that. If either like Farhad, I don't know if you know those numbers either. It is a significant portion of our students, but of course they have the option. Many of our students will have the option of reconsidering that as well in light of their beret year too. But I think you were asking me to present an example of something, and I'm not quite sure I understand what it is
Yeah.
you're asking me to share
So,
about.
were there any examples of stories that come to mind where this would be something really valuable in the eyes of, admissions council or someone that's applying to university, specifically going through a beret? Yeah.
So it's I can give some examples of conversations that we have had and are going to continue to have where the students are generating this kind of the kinds of stories that I think admissions offices will find compelling. I should say, I've never worked in an admissions office, but I know a fair amount about what kinds of things, especially universities in the United States, are looking for. So that's another caveat as well. I can't speak with great confidence about universities outside of the United States. But I think that university admissions offices are looking for students who not only have really interesting stories to tell, but students who are deeply self-reflective and can see themselves and speak articulately about their learning journey and what is meaningful to them. So that can also connect that to who they see themselves to be and who they want to become. So identity is also a big focus of this as well. And so a lot of the conversations, and when I say conversations, that can mean a bunch of things, like a one-on-one conversation, a group conversation, but also facilitated workshops that we're working more and more into our programming. A lot of the way that we design these is to facilitate students being able to tell these stories. I'll give you an example of something that I'm really excited about that's coming up soon, which is going to be our very first Tuesday in Paris. We're going to have a large group session where we invite our students to reflect on their most recent fellowship and start. There's so many learning threads that are happening through the morning program, through the afternoon options, through the one-on-one advising, through the house meetings, through these all cohort sessions. We want to give them an opportunity to just have some quiet and do some self-reflection, to make connections amongst these various threads. And then also to reflect on, what does this mean to me? Why is this meaningful to me? And how do I want to take this forward in the next step of my beret year? So we'll be doing this through a combination of self-reflection, small group discussion, and then large group share out, and then pull out some themes, and always pointing forward. What's next? What do I want to learn next? How is this changing who I see myself to be? How is this changing my sense of what's possible for me in this world? So I don't know if that's a specific enough answer to your question.
That's really, really powerful. That's really powerful. And I'm wondering what Fahad thinks about this, because I know you've been counseling in the past a lot of students through the college admissions process as well. And I'd love to hear from you if you're talking to a student through that college counseling journey, as with a lot of students in our program. The points that Jason was bringing up in terms of, power skills, cross-cultural skills, what would that look like as you are talking to a student, thinking about Baret, and also college admissions around at the same time?
Mm. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that, as Jason was saying, the skills are hard to kind of demonstrate, on paper very often.
Mm.
But I think what Jason was also saying was that Beret is a year of stories,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And I was also going to ask Jason about kind of what he thinks of the difference between kind of more traditional learning and learning how to tell stories as well, because this is kind of part of the kind of education that's happening at Beret, where it's not homework, but it's something else. And I would love for him to reflect on that in a minute. Um, but the place where something like Beret lives, if it were to live in your college applications, would be, I would say, definitely in your essays and in your personal statement. Um, and the essay for to US colleges is it's kind of it's a rite of passage for so many people. It's a chance for you to really reflect and express who you are. Sometimes for many of us, it's the first time that you're doing that. And the Beret Year presents you with many ways in which you can talk about yourself. It gives you many different mirrors. It can be, you know, you in Sao Paulo looking at something and seeing something back of yourself there. It could be you in New York having an experience listening to somebody and resonating with something there. It could be you getting along with somebody who's quite different from you and learning something about yourself. It provides lots of scenarios for stories. And I mean, one place those stories live would be in your Common App, but the other place those stories live are, in your lives growing up and in
Mm,
your friendships, very importantly,
mm,
and that ends up reflecting in all sorts of dimensions of your life. But I think the first place that it comes out is often in that college essay, which sometimes I loved and sometimes I really disliked because of the pressure it puts on people to kind of portray themselves in some particular way. But more interestingly, I think to kind of tie Jason in here is, when I would recommend students to do different programs, we'd want programs to have like a rigor or to have a degree, like a credit or something like that. Um, and what I find very interesting about Beret is that, learning is happening in such interesting ways without homework, without chasing an exam or a grade or something like that. And there's a really wonderful story here of students being able to do whatever they want, but there's also learning happening. And I was wondering, in your mind, how is that really happening?
So I'll try not to get too too nerdy about it. Um, there's a what I there's a really powerful model for how we learn experientially. It came from a scholar by the name of David Kolb, and
Mm,
he's got what he calls the experiential learning cycle. Um, and the thing is, I think rather than a two-dimensional cycle, I like to think of it as an ascending spiral. But it's based on you start with it with some kind of something happens. You have an experience of some kind that affects you emotionally. What do you do with that? Well, it's helpful if we can reflect on it. So it starts with reflection, being able to narrate what happened and then make some meaning out of it for myself, and then connecting it to systems, and then going and trying something new. And I'll give you one of my favorite examples. Um, so one of the things that I experienced the first time I went to China was I was very surprised at how much cars were honking their horns. So everywhere went honk, 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 honk. And it really bothered me. It was just I found it very disruptive. It was physically irksome to me. And there was a bunch of thoughts swirling around in my head about like, why is everybody so angry? I had all of these assumptions that I was making about why people were honking their horns. Uh, Now, what I didn't have, but what I wish I did have, because I've come to learn a lot about this over the years, right? But it would have been really helpful to have had somebody engage me in a conversation about that. Okay, all right, Jason, so you're noticing that there's a lot of people honking their horns. Why do you think that might be? And we could have a conversation about that. And then, so that gets me thinking about, okay, well, what am I bringing to the table here, right? How are my own preconceived notions, my own cultural background, my own unconscious biases? What am I bringing? It's not that there's objectively annoying things happening in the world. There's something that I'm bringing to the table. So helping me identify what that is. And then getting me to consider some alternatives. Well, so this is one of the most powerful observations in this realm that I heard in my early years in China. Somebody suggested, well, if you're riding your bicycle at that time, there weren't that many cars in China. There were a lot of bicycles. Have you noticed how much people ring their bicycle bells? Well, yeah, they ring their bicycle bells all the time. Why do they ring their bicycle bells? Because they're angry? Well, no, they're ringing their bicycle bells to alert other people that they're present and that there's potential danger. Well, since cars at that point had been a relatively recent introduction into China, could it be that people take their default behaviors from the bicycle world and apply them to the world of driving cars? In other words, maybe when they're honking, they're just trying to alert other people to their presence. So go back out and make some observations about when people honk their horns. Well, gosh, sure enough, it seemed to be that most people were honking their horns to alert other people to their presence. It was a communicative function that was designed around safety. So, maybe a trivial seeming example, but if you can go through that process of making an observation, having some reflection, connecting it to broader structures like cultural systems, and then going and making another observation and having another kind of experience, that's where this upward spiral of learning can happen. And crucially, again, this is the kind of learning that universities weren't designed to produce. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen ever in universities. It can. Specifically, this is why I was pulled towards study abroad programs and why I worked in study abroad programs, where you can bring the knowledge of the classroom out into the world, go beyond the walls of the classroom, have this kind of learning. But by and large, it's not the kind of learning that's going to be really deeply infused into your university experience. But if you do something like take a Baret year into your university experience, your university, first of all, becoming a more attractive applicant, but then also having so much more context for your university experience. It'll enhance everything about your university experience and your career going forward. So I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that was, yeah. So Najim, do you want to open it up for some Q&A, or should we continue poking around in Jason's research and his knowledge?
Yes, let's do it. Let's open the floor up to any questions that you might have. Feel free to send them in the chat as well. And also, raise your hand, unmute your mic. We'd love to see your face and hear your voice as well. And awesome. So a question coming in asking, I found your example about students seeking to develop powers by understanding how to ask a good question. Do you have any examples like that? Examples of students being able to being in a situation that helps them develop those power skills? That's a really great question. I mean, I'd love to also hear about that in the context even of the fellowship that you led in San Francisco and Silicon Valley as well. Like, what was the thinking around that? How did power skills, cross-border skills present in that fellowship, or any other example that comes to mind?
I so appreciate the question. If you're okay with Nigel, just for a moment, I'll put a pin in the question about the San Francisco fellowship. And I'm trying to think of the example that I'm not sure Seema. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Can you tell me how to pronounce your name correctly?
Shimon, I believe.
What was it again?
Shimon.
Shimon, is that correct?
Yes, it's a Polish name, I think.
Okay. Well, thank you for your question, and I want to try to answer it with another specific example. What I'm doing right now is I'm recalling. What's interesting is I actually have found. So one of it's like I envy our fellows having such extensive daily contact with students. It's something that I wish I could do more, and actually Dean Ama and I have begun a practice of lunch with the deans so we can get to know students a little bit more. Organically, day to day, we don't have nearly as much contact with students as we would like to. So for better or for worse, one of the contexts that I have had the opportunity to engage with students is in when there's some kind of a behavioral issue that comes to the dean's attention. So I have an opportunity to sit down with a student because it's always like we really don't like the word discipline. That's so not who we are. Everything is always a learning opportunity, always 100%. Everything is a learning opportunity. And so if there's, a behavioral issue of some kind where a student is having some kind of an impact on another student that's negative, the first thing we want to do is draw their attention to the impact. And I have found that to be an extremely rich context for inviting students to become more self-reflective. And, like I said, I'm doing an inventory in my mind right now about what some of those conversations have revolved around. And it's kind of hard to get into I can't get into too many specifics there because these are behavioral issues, but that's the theme ultimately of these conversations is helping to generate and build habits of self-reflection. For some of us, it comes more naturally. For some of us, it comes less naturally. But I think that self-reflection, that self-awareness is really foundational when it comes to building the power skills. And so that's something that it's not just me that our entire team is focused on, is always encouraging students to reflect more on themselves and impacts of their actions. And then again, what can we learn? How can we grow? Always at the center of the conversation. Now, to your question about the fellowship, was there something specific about the fellowship in San Francisco that you wanted me to talk about, Neijing? I can't hear you.
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I think this might be an interesting question to segue into Rebecca's question. How and why do you choose the specific locations and types of fellowship options? Will they be changed or be flexible based on participants' feedback? Let's maybe we can go with the first question, and I can maybe type down the second, a more technical question in the chat as well for everyone else.
So which question would you like me to address right now?
Maybe the first one, how and why do you choose the specific locations and types of fellowship options? And maybe you can share a little bit more about the San Francisco Fellowship as well.
Yes. So how and why we choose specific locations is based, there's two overarching forces at play here that sometimes work together and sometimes work against each other. And those are, how can we provide a broad range of destinations in a region that give you a different kind of a look and different kind of a sense of the region than you experience in the home base city. So the concept, I think most of you know this, but just for review, in each of the 7 regions, we spend about 3 weeks in a home-based city. So in North America, it was New York City. Here in Latin America, it's Sao Paulo. It's going to be Paris for Europe, et cetera, down the line. So we get a particular look at a society or at a region through the home-based city. And the fellowships, we want to provide a broad range of options that are also connected to the 4 main learning domains of Baret as well, which is politics, creativity, innovation, and nature. So we want to provide a broad range based on those factors. And then there are the logistical constraints that we face because and security is a big issue, and we want to make sure for that health and safety wise that there's safe places to go with nearby medical facilities. And so through many conversations that happen around those two overarching forces, I guess, or I can't think of a better word than that right now, we align ultimately on fellowship destinations. For North America, there ended up being 7 fellowship destinations. One of them was San Francisco, which for me was special because that's where I live. I live close to the city of San Francisco, and it was really fun. Two fellows and I led a group of 27 students out to the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was able to kind of show off the wonders of my hometown and its stunning scenery, vibrant economy. We had a session on design thinking that was led by an old colleague of mine on the UC Berkeley campus. We visited an incubator, a technology incubator in Berkeley called Skydeck. We visited the Stanford University campus, and we also visited a venture capital firm near Stanford, plus an affordable housing nonprofit organization down in the city of San Jose, and we did a bunch of other stuff as well. But the theme was, okay, if you want to understand the region of North America, it's wonderful to try to understand innovation. And we went to the part of the United States most closely associated with innovation, which is the San Francisco Bay Area and Silicon Valley, and had a fellowship there. And then there were 6 other fellowships as well, based on different themes. But also there's one in Los Angeles focused on film. There was one in New Orleans focused on jazz and music. And then there were 4 others in addition to that. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much, Jason. And I see 2 hands up as well. Kareem, would you like to ask your question?
Hello, how are you guys?
Hi, Kareem.
I want to start off by thanking you all for this amazing session. But now, diving to my question. I'm curious about what are 5 words you've used to describe a Baret scholar, and how would you want them to be at the end of the Baret journey?
How many words did you give me?
5.
5 words. Woo. Good. Does self-reflective count as 1 word?
I mean, it could. Up to you.
Okay. So I'll start with that. Self-reflective. Open. Compassionate. And I'll say knowledgeable too, because I don't want to completely discount knowledge. It's like I don't want anybody to walk away from this webinar thinking that I think that knowledge is a bad thing. Knowledge is incredibly important and vital and central to so much about human existence. And knowledge is also something you will be gaining. It's not that you will be gaining knowledge on a Baret year too. And that is a core component of what we do. So I will say knowledgeable is another word that I would offer. And then I say ready. And when I say ready, I mean ready for the challenges of a university education and everything that comes after it. Great question.
Thank you. But for the second part.
Oh, what was the second part?
Yeah, how would you want them to be at the end of the Baret journey, like the Baret scholars?
Well, I guess all 5 of those words. But I think there's so much more that comes out of it too, because you'll have 179 peers that you didn't have before. You'll have all of the fellows and the staff so you'll have a global network of friends for the rest of your life, friends, colleagues, mentors. So that's another extremely valuable outcome of the Baret year is the humans that you'll meet. You'll have made friends in the regions that aren't on the Baret year too. So I mean, enriched, like deeply enriched, is, I guess, maybe that's a 6th word that I'm sort of cheating. But since you gave me a second part to the question, I'm just going to claim it. I'm going to claim that it's okay for me to use that 6th word as well.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I hope that gives a sufficient
answer.
Okay, thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kareem, for your question. Ishan, would you like to go ahead?
Hi guys, how are you doing? Yeah, so currently I'm studying at the United World College of India, and I'm living here as well. And the experience I've had here is, it's been more of a blend between, the freedom and structure, and that sort of pushes us to make more meaningful connections and contributions to our communities. So my question was, how does Baret help balance this freedom along with structure? And what are some of the ways in which, it encourages both independence along with personal responsibility?
Great. I love the question. So the main way, the structure piece, I'll take the structure piece first. The structure comes from the existing pieces of the program. So for example, morning program, afternoon options, advising, and house meetings and fellowships. So those are the main structural pillars of the program that they provide structure for learning to happen. And then there's everything else, so which sort of goes under the broad banner of independent exploration. So other than those core components of the program, it's really ultimately up to you to decide how you want to spend the time that you have. What we have found so far on this journey is that a lot of creativity comes from students, and I'll give you an example of something that we did recently right here near Sao Paulo. We had 4 or 5 students from Sao Paulo, from the city of Sao Paulo or near Sao Paulo, and one of those students said, "Hey, could we organize? My family has a farm not far from Sao Paulo. Could we organize a weekend for students to come and spend on our farm?" And we ran it through because we have our chief security officer, we have our chief medical officer, we have our deans, we have our director of travel and logistics, and together we kind of make up the leadership team. And we had a bunch of conversations. We asked some questions back to the students to make sure that things were going to be safe, that this adhered to our safety and security standards and our health standards. And it happened, and it was wonderful. I'm not sure how many students ultimately went, but it's an example of the students had the freedom to make a proposal and run it by the authorities, right? And a process ensued from that led to what ended up being a really extraordinary experience. So I think the fact that we have built in so much time that isn't spoken for, that doesn't show up in a Google Calendar, right? Allows for that kind of really kind of magical experience to happen. And that's something again that the students took on to organize for themselves. But there's also countless opportunities if you just want to go wander the streets of the home-based city. If you want to do it by yourself, if you want to do it with friends, you can do that. You have 3-day weekends, right? If you want to plan a trip for yourself, you just need to do it, propose it to us within 48 hours. And our chief security officer, chief medical officer, make sure that you know what security concerns there might be, where the nearest hospitals are, make sure that you know what the number of the duty phone is, and off you go. So does that answer your question?
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for the questions today, and thank you, Jason, for your time. I know that as the person on call, you must have a million other things that you're doing today, so we so appreciate your time today. And we're nearing the end of the session, but I've left my email in the chat. If you'd like to ask any follow-up questions to myself or Fahad or Jason, I can pass it along as well. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we hope to see your application soon.
Thanks for joining, everybody. This was really fun.
Thank you. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Neijing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you.